Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rent Prep for Landlords. I'm Andrew Schultz, Community Manager here at Rent Prep. I'm also a licensed real estate broker with over 15 years of experience in the property management and rental property industries. Happy New Year from everyone here at Rent Prep. On today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the dreaded New Year's resolution. We have 5 New Year's resolutions for landlords to help you set yourself up for success in 2024. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get to it. Starting off our list is probably the most obvious resolution of them all, getting organized and determining your goals. This sounds so cliche, and to an extent, I suppose it probably is, but it's also the most natural starting point for your planning. It's very difficult to know where you're going until you know where you've been, and for that reason, organization should be priority number 1 on your New Year's resolutions. Everyone's idea of organized is going to be different, but the goal here is to be able to set things up in such a fashion that when you need to find them in the future, you know exactly where to go and exactly where to look. File cabinets, computer files, a combination of the two is typically what you're going to find in most offices. I know that I'm famous for taking a pile of paperwork and setting it on top of a file cabinet and saying, I'll deal with that later. And honestly, the pile just keeps growing and growing and growing. Well, later is now. Your business will run so much better when you actually take the time to handle the paperwork the way that it should be, whether it be invoices, leases, whatever comes your way. Having a way to organize yourself so that you can file that information and be able to recall it later when you need it is going to be one of the most critical aspects of keeping your business moving forward. And remember that the best organization system is the one that you're actually going to use. So whatever works for you in terms of organization is with the best system out there, as far as I'm concerned. No system is going to be fully complete and without errors, but having something is much better than having the giant stack of paperwork sitting on top of your file cabinet. Your goals should help you and your business to move forward. So when you're setting your goals for the year, make sure that you set some attainable goals with reasonable timelines, as well as some reach goals to help keep pulling you and your business forward. I personally set a couple of easier goals for early in the year so that I can get those goals and meet those goals and check something off the to-do list. And honestly, that little bit of boost from knowing that I've accomplished something, knowing that I've reached one of my goals for the year, helps propel me forward through the rest of the year. So don't be afraid to set, I don't want to call it a weak goal, but an easy goal, something that you know you can attain early on in the year so that it keeps you focused and keeps you motivated to work towards your more complex goals later on in the year. Our second resolution is to evaluate your team. Real estate doesn't happen in a vacuum, and no one can complete a real estate transaction on their own. The ongoing operation of the property is also going to require some additional hands as well, so there's no way that you're going to operate in this business as a solo one-man or one-woman operation. When considering your real estate team, you will need to fill several different roles across a lot of different industries. For instance, you'll probably need a real estate agent, you might need a property manager, you'll certainly need contractors, professional services, attorneys, lenders, accountants, insurance providers. The list can go on and on and on. Some people will also add other roles in here, such as wholesalers that bring you deals, as well as internal staff, depending on the size of your operation. But this gives you a pretty good list of people that you need to have by your side as you're working your way through the real estate business, through the real estate industry. The first question that you should ask yourself is, do I have all of these seats filled? If not, it's time to start looking for people to fill these roles. You will have to spend some time determining what you need from each role, and then also determining who the right person or the right company is for that role. And a good example of this would be a contractor. So generally speaking, a general contractor is not the person that you're going to want to call for small tasks like painting a wall. You need a handyman or a painter for something like that. In that same line of thinking, you wouldn't want your plumber to come in and try to replace your main breaker panel for your home. It's a good idea to have multiple people in different trades because the different issues that pop up over the course of time are going to require different skill sets, and most people don't have every single skill set that there is to have when it comes to the trades. Another good example would be your attorney. If your attorney practices mostly personal injury law, they're likely not going to be the right attorney for you when it comes to dealing with your real estate deals. The process is going to be completely different. An attorney that specializes in real estate and landlord-tenant law is going to be invaluable as a member of your team, and you should definitely make sure that you're looking for someone that specializes in that niche in that industry. This is also a good time to evaluate The seats that you do have filled, how are those relationships going? Are there people that you were working with that maybe they're not so much helping you to reach your goals, or it takes a long time to get communication or information back from them? Those people might be in the wrong seat. It may be time for a discussion to see what you can do to work better with the people that you're already working with, or it may be time to replace that person if the relationship isn't strong to begin with, or if the person's unwilling or unable to help you to reach your goals. Our third resolution is to build up your preventative maintenance and your capital improvement funds. This one is pretty straightforward. If you don't have your maintenance reserves and your capital improvement funds fully funded, start setting cash aside now. Start setting cash aside yesterday. How much should you have set aside? That's going to depend on you and your personal level of risk. There are a lot of factors that play into this, and we'll talk about a few of them. The age of the home and its systems is going to play probably the biggest role in this. Older systems generally require much more maintenance than a newer home will. Older systems generally require much more maintenance than newer systems will. And I don't think that that's going to be seen as a shock to anyone. But how do you actually decide how much to set aside? An off-the-cuff answer would be to budget a percentage of the total gross rents every year. Typically, this percentage would be split into a preventative maintenance fund and a capital improvement fund. You might just bulk them all together. It depends on how you're setting yourself up. But we recommend to our property management clients to set aside at least 10 to 15% of the gross the gross annual rents, which frankly may not be enough in some instances. Depends on the property, depends on how much you have coming in from rent. If you have an older home with older systems that are due for replacement, this may not be your best method. Another method that landlords will use is to set aside several months of fixed expenses. So you already know what your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, perhaps your property management, your lawn care, snow removal, trash. You might even know what your utilities are going to be on a monthly basis if you're on some sort of a budgeted or equalized billing program. Setting aside multiple months of fixed expenses is a great way to ensure that even if you hit a bump in the road, you're not going to wind up in that ditch, at least for a little while. I would recommend somewhere between 3 and 6 months of fixed expenses set aside if this is the route that you want to go. The longer you have, or the more expense money you have set aside, the longer the road is that you can travel down before you eventually need to pull off to the side and sell or whatever the case may be. The most in-depth option would be to evaluate the property and determine how long you think you have left in your various systems throughout the home. I'm talking about things like your roof, your water heater, your furnace, your appliances, things of that nature. Determine roughly how much time you think you have left on those systems, and then determine what a rough replacement cost would be. From there, you can start setting aside funds so that when the time comes to replace that 20-year-old furnace, you already have the money set aside to take care of it, and it doesn't go on a credit card or something like that because you don't have the funds ready to handle an emergency expense like that. Keep in mind with any of these methods, you need to determine what's going to be best for your unique situation. You may want to sit down with your accountant that we mentioned in the last section and get their recommendations as well. They're going to have a much better idea based on your unique situation as to how much you should set aside. And I think sitting down with your accountant, they can certainly help you to plan how much you need to set aside and when you need to have those amounts set aside by in order to start being able to handle those capital improvements as they come down. Our fourth resolution is to network more. I'm pretty guilty of this one myself. After being in the office all day, I typically don't want to go out to a networking event and see more people. I'm not the type of person that wants to get up at 6:45 in the morning for a BNI group or something like that. So one of my goals this year is to get out and network more. Word of mouth is one of the best ways that our business grows, and being present at networking events goes a long way in that regard. So one of my goals this year is to make sure that I get out and do more networking. Networking is also a great way to fill seats on your team. Oftentimes, everyone goes around at the start of a networking event and introduces themselves and tells you what they do, or they have a name tag with their name and their occupation, or whatever the case may be. So if you're looking to fill the accountant seat on your team, chances are that you're going to find one or two of them at a networking event for real estate investors. You can also talk to other investors while you're there, find out who they use and what their experiences have been. Networking events can also be a great way to find off-market deals. Investors love to talk, and you may find someone that has a property that you might be interested in, Or perhaps you want to offload a property so that you can move into something larger, do a 1031 exchange. You may find an investor that's interested in purchasing your property. These events are also a great way to stay connected with what's going on both in the real estate market and in the community as a whole. You may talk to some investors and find out that rents are going up in an area where you have a property, and you may not have known about that. Oftentimes, investors are also very well clued into what's going on around the community, such as community development projects, zoning changes, and things of that nature. There are a lot of benefits to networking. Get out there and do it. Finally, our fifth resolution is to stay up to date. And I know that this one is easier said than done, but let's talk about what I mean when I say stay up to date. I don't think I really need to dive too deeply into why it's important to stay up to date, but it's worth bringing this topic up. Things change rapidly in real estate, and what was true yesterday may not be true today. So staying up to date is going to be critical to your business success over the course of time. We just mentioned networking groups, and those are a fantastic way to stay up to date. There's so much knowledge that gets passed around in these networking events that it's definitely worth going, even when you don't want to. I also recommend taking continuing education classes in areas where you're looking to learn more or you have limited experience. I personally think that every landlord and housing provider should take a fair housing class. I think that a lot of people would truly benefit from it if they understood what fair housing laws actually were, and I think it would go a long way in helping people to be compliant with the fair housing regulation. You may also want to take a class in how to write a better lease, or you may want to take a class in how to screen tenants, what you can and can't say. There are a lot of different topics out there that you could take classes on to help you educate yourself in areas where you might not be quite as experienced, or where you think that there's something that you're missing that you might be able to elevate yourself or elevate your business just by learning more about that topic. I try to get out to several continuing education classes throughout the year. I know this year I'm taking a class on, I believe, 1031 exchanges that I'm pretty excited about. So there's always a thing or two that you can learn in the real estate world. It's just a matter of going out there and increasing your knowledge base. You may want to consider joining a professional organization to also help you stay informed. I'm personally a member of NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers. There's also National Apartment Association, NAA. Those are two large groups that kind of operate at the federal level. There's also typically going to be groups at your state level and your local level as well that'll help you to find out what's going on a little bit more close to home. The local level may just be an investor meetup, to be honest, but you may find that there's a more organized professional landlording group in your area that you might want to join. When joining these groups, the goal should be to stay as informed as possible, as much as possible, and oftentimes these groups are going to offer classes as well. Finally, be sure to watch for legislative changes at the federal, state, and local levels. I'm pretty sure that at this point, most legislative bodies are posting their prospective legislation before it gets passed. Sometimes this is going to be online. Sometimes this is going to be physically posted in whatever government building. But you're going to want to take a look from time to time to see what's going on and see what's coming down the pipeline before it has an opportunity to just be passed and slap you across the face. A good example of this was the source of income legislation that passed in Erie County. We actually had lawful source of income protection in Erie County well before that was passed at the state level here in New York. So it was important for us to know that law, understand that law, and adhere to that law for all of our rentals that were located in Erie County. Staying informed can be a challenge, but it's critical to your ongoing business success, and this is not something that you should take lightly. So there you have it. Setting New Year's resolutions as a landlord does not have to be a terrifying experience. You should always have a generally good idea as to what direction your compass is pointed in, and there's no better time to figure that out than at the start of the year. Have you already set your New Year's resolutions? What are some of the things on your list this year? Tell us your favorite New Year's resolution down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Andrew Schultz with RentPrep.com, and we'll talk to you soon.